Hi everyone, welcome back again to the Bible Project podcast. And we're at the start of Genesis chapter 13 in our wonderful, magnificent journey together through the whole Bible, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. I'd remind you the transcripts to all of these podcasts are available in the episodes notes section of any audio version of the website, with some links also available in the YouTube and the Facebook pages. So we're in Genesis part 104 in our daily series working through Genesis, and this is a new section, and I'm going to call this section, I'm going to do an introduction to podcast over the next few days, which I've titled Avoiding Conflict and Being Blessed. And today we're just going to cover the first 4 chapters of Genesis 13. Now, by way of introduction, when preparing this, I was reminded of a period where I experienced some conflict in my life. It was during my first independent holiday as a 17-year-old. Along with a friend of mine called Stephen, we hired a small static caravan in a place called Port Rush, which is a little tiny seaside town on the north coast of the north of Ireland. And I went off with him. We each went off on our motorbikes. I had a little 100cc motorbike at the time, and we headed off for what turned out to be a rain-soaked weekend in the town of Port Rush. Now, because of the weather, we were stuck in a great deal, and we obviously got a little bit bored, but we had our radios with us and our tape decks, as they were in those days, and we brought a travel set. So we decided that when the forecast said there was going to be rain for a couple of days, so we'd have a mini chess tournament. But right from the off, we argued about the conditions in which we should play the chess game matches. His rule that loud music could be played during the matches. I said I wanted the rule to be no background music so that we could concentrate on the chess. In the end, Stephen unilaterally decided that he would stick to his rule during the games and I could stick to my rule if I wanted. Well, you can see how that worked out. And that was just one of many sources of conflict we had that week. But overall, we didn't fall out big time. But in all honesty, it wasn't particularly happily holiday because we were both only 17, I think he was 18 at the time, and both quite immature really, and neither of us never really wanted to cede ground, neither of us wanted to compromise on anything. It seemed we just disagreed on a lot that week, and it was a rather unpleasant week at times, full of bickering and quarrelling. Now the question this morning is, how can we avoid, or better still, how can we prevent conflict in our life? Not just minor conflicts like this, but serious conflict over serious issues. Now, if I could show you a way that the Bible teaches us very directly how you can reduce conflict in your life, but not only that, but how you could be blessed through times of hardship, would that be worth discovering? Well, that's what I'm going to try and do over these next few days. The story and the events we're going to look at over the next, I would say, 3-4 podcasts are played out for us, and they're really going to help us in that. And the opening verses of the part of this chapter will introduce us to the people and the conflict that is going to be played out for us here. So I'd like to begin by reading for you the first few verses of Genesis, which says this, beginning at chapter 13, verse 1. So Abraham went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot was with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and in silver and gold. From the Negev he went from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, and where he had first built an altar. There Abraham called upon the name of the Lord. So these first few verses, they're telling us a couple of facts, aren't they? They're telling us that now Abraham is rich, both in livestock and in silver and gold. And he is returning to this place called Bethel, where he had previously, where he had previously built an altar, which is described for us back in chapter 5. And it draws attention to the fact that Lot is still with him. Now you may recall that God told Abraham to leave Haran and to leave his family behind. But Lot had gone with him up this point. He'd gone with him to Haran. Now the fact that Lot went with him is an indication that Abraham wasn't totally obeying the Lord at this point. The other obvious thing is the fact that Abram is now rich not only in livestock, but also it's declared he's rich in silver and gold. Now that would have been unusual for a nomad, a herdsman, to have wealth not just in livestock, but also in silver and gold. And the fact that he returns to Bethel, where he had previously built an altar, is an indication many recognize as Abraham returning in his relationship to the Lord. So these verses are telling us that Abraham, after his what can only be described as a failure in Egypt, is returning to Bethel, where he had previously worshipped and called upon the name of the Lord. And in a sense, it means that he's found his way back to the Lord again, or he's certainly heading in that direction, isn't he? Now, many preachers over the years have used this passage to teach us a lesson about wandering away from the Lord and coming back to the Lord. And that's a good message. There's a good lesson to be learned right there about that. And many people have preached on this passage over the year, and you'll find in the internet, if you search for sermons on this subject, some of them will be entitled Back to Bethel. It's a good message that people have found and find helpful over the years, talking about getting back to Bethel, getting back to the Lord. You've departed from the Lord, but you'll need to get back to Bethel, as some will say. So if you, in a spiritual sense, have wandered far from the Lord, if you in your life, in a spiritual sense, have gone down to Egypt, gone into areas of conflict, gone into places you shouldn't, done things that you shouldn't, got into trouble, well, you too need to come back to Bethel today. So there's a good message right there to be learned, and don't miss that message if it applies to you today. But here we go. At this point, we find Abraham back in Bethel, and the place where he had previously built an altar and worshipped the Lord, and he's back there. And remember, Abraham had not been totally obedient in allowing Lot to tag along. Now the next verses will introduce us to the other character in this little narrative play that we're going to be looking at in chapter 13. But we'll find out more about him in the next episode. So I hope you can join me as we work together through this chapter 13 over the next 3 or 4 podcasts. Don't forget, all the links you need are contained within either the episode notes of the podcast or the Facebook or the YouTube channel. And there's also a place there where you can support the ministry if you want. But other than that, I'll see you back here very soon. Bye for now.